I offered a lonely fox girl a warm cup of tea. She whispered it filled her heart with love. The wanderers wait. The autumn wind carried the scent of old paper and distant rain through the narrow streets of Ashvale district, where Zarin Khalil locked the door of his small bookshop just past midnight. His fingers traced the worn brass key as he tucked it into his pocket, the same ritual he'd performed alone for 3 years now. The weight of solitude pressed against his chest like a familiar companion, not painful, but present, constant as his own shadow. Across the cobblestone square, 3 figures sat beneath a flickering street lamp with instruments they barely played. To passers-by, Vesan, Chira, and Tam appeared to be ordinary street musicians resting between songs, but their eyes held depths that belonged to no earthly sky. They had traveled across galaxies studying the peculiar phenomenon humans called love, documenting the invisible threads that bound hearts together. "That one," Vesan murmured, nodding toward Zarin as he walked past. "His presence calms others. See how the night watchman's shoulders relaxed when they spoke." Chira tilted her head, crystalline patterns shifting beneath her human disguise. Comfort without demand. Rare among humans who usually seek recognition for their kindness. Tam noted it in their shared consciousness, marking Zarin Khalil as someone worth observing. Zarin didn't notice the alien musicians or their interest. His thoughts drifted to the empty apartment waiting above the shop, to dinners eaten in silence, to conversations held only with book characters who never answered back. He loved his life, truly, the smell of aging pages, the joy of recommending the perfect story to a searching customer, but sometimes the quiet felt too vast. Near the old fountain at the district's edge, something shimmered in the darkness. Amora Cien materialized from between worlds, her fox spirit form flickering like a candle struggling against wind. 200 years she'd wandered the spaces between realms, watching mortal lives bloom and fade like flowers she could never touch. Her people, the Sylvan fox spirits, lived eternally apart, observing humanity from behind invisible veils. But loneliness, she discovered, could follow you across any distance. Her legs buckled as the crossing drained her remaining strength. The cobblestones felt cold beneath her palms as she knelt by the fountain, her disguise barely holding. Fox ears threatened to emerge, her tail wanting to materialize. She pressed her forehead against the stone edge, fighting tears. "Just one moment of true warmth," she whispered to the empty square. "Just once, I want to feel less alone." The alien observers noticed her immediately, the shimmer of otherworldly energy, the desperate ache radiating from her spirit. Vesan leaned forward with interest. Zarin chose that moment to take a different route home, drawn by instinct toward the fountain. His bookshop keys jangled softly as he walked. The 3 observers held their collective breath, sensing the delicate threads of fate beginning to weave. A cup of warmth. Zarin saw her from across the square, a figure hunched by the fountain, trembling in the cold night air. Without thinking, his feet carried him toward her, the same gentle instinct that made him recommend books to lonely customers now pulling him forward. "Miss? Are you all right?" Amora looked up, quickly forcing her fox features to retreat beneath human skin. Through her blurred vision, she saw a man with kind eyes and worried creases on his forehead, his hand extended but not demanding. Something in his expression held no judgment, no expectation, only concern as pure as spring water. "I'm lost," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't a lie. She'd been lost for 2 centuries. Zarin noticed her shivering and immediately shrugged off his jacket, draping it around her shoulders. "There's a tea stall still open on Baker Street. Come, you need something warm." He helped her stand, his touch careful and respectful, one hand supporting her elbow. Amora felt the contact like electricity, so different from the cold void she'd known. Human warmth. Real, solid, present. The alien observers followed at a distance, Chira recording every detail of this interaction. "He gives without calculation," she noted. "No trade expected." The tea stall glowed like a small sanctuary in the darkness, steam rising from brass kettles. Zarin guided Amora to a wooden bench and ordered without asking, jasmine tea with honey, something in his soul knowing she needed sweetness to counter her sorrow. When the ceramic cup was placed in her hands, Amora wrapped her fingers around it, feeling warmth seep into her skin, through her bones, straight into the hollow chambers of her heart. The sensation overwhelmed her. She'd forgotten that temperature could mean comfort, that such a simple gesture could crack the ice around her spirit. A tear slipped down her cheek, then another. "I'm sorry," she whispered, embarrassed. "It's just. I haven't felt kindness like this in over 200 years. The words escaped before she could stop them. She froze, expecting disbelief or mockery, but Zarin simply settled beside her on the bench, leaving respectful space between them. "That's far too long to go without kindness," he said softly, as if her impossible timeline was the least surprising part of that statement. "Everyone deserves warmth." Amora looked at him then, truly looked. His face held no suspicion, no demand for explanation. He simply accepted her words and offered presence. Something inside her chest, something that had been clenched tight for decades, began to unfold like a night-blooming flower. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "Zarin Khalil. I run the bookshop in the square." He smiled, small and genuine. "And you?" "Amora CN." She sipped the tea, tasting honey and hope. "I'm between homes." "Then you need somewhere safe tonight." Zarin pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. "The innkeeper on Copper Lane owes me a favor. I found her grandmother's favorite novel in her estate sale. She'll give you a room, no questions asked." Amora stared at him, this impossible human who helped strangers without hesitation. "Why are you doing this?" Zarin considered the question, watching steam rise from his own teacup. "Because loneliness is the heaviest weight anyone can carry. And because—" He met her eyes, something unspoken passing between them. "I think we recognize it in each other." The truth of his words settled over them like a shared blanket. From their observation point, Vesson whispered to his companions, "The fox spirit bond. It's beginning. Did you see the energy shift when their eyes met?" Tom nodded slowly. "But this isn't destiny or magic forcing them together. This is choice. Pure, simple choice to be kind." 30 minutes later, Zarin walked Amora to the inn, his coat still around her shoulders. At the door, she returned it reluctantly, already missing its warmth and the scent of old books that clung to the fabric. "Thank you," she said, the words feeling inadequate for the gift he'd given, not just tea and shelter, but the reminder that goodness still existed in the world. "Come by the bookshop tomorrow," Zarin offered, surprising himself with the invitation. "If you'd like. I usually have tea around sunset." Amora's heart, dormant for so long, gave a small, hopeful flutter. "I'd like that very much." As Zarin walked home, he touched his chest where warmth had bloomed during their conversation, wondering why a stranger's smile felt like coming home. Evenings of understanding. The next evening, Amora stood outside the bookshop as the sun painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. Through the window, she could see Zarin arranging volumes on a shelf, his movements careful and deliberate. Her fox spirit senses detected something rare in him, a soul that radiated comfort without trying, like a hearth that warmed simply by existing. The bell chimed softly as she entered. Zarin looked up, and his face transformed with a smile that made her feel seen for the first time in centuries. "You came," he said, genuine happiness in his voice. "You offered tea," she replied, matching his smile. "I'm learning not to refuse kindness." It became their ritual. Every evening as Ashvale district settled into twilight, Amora would arrive at the bookshop. Zarin would brew tea, jasmine for her, mint for himself, and they would talk among the towering shelves, surrounded by 1,000 stories while creating their own. He read her poetry, Rumi, Hafiz, contemporary verses about longing and belonging. She told him about the silver forests of her homeland, places where moonlight pooled like water and time moved differently. She carefully avoided revealing her true nature, but wove truth into metaphor, testing whether he could accept her strangeness. "You speak about your home like someone in exile," Zarin observed one evening, his finger marking his place in a book of Sufi poetry. Amora curled into the reading chair across from him, teacup cradled in her lap. "Perhaps because I left seeking something I couldn't name. Now I wonder if I was simply seeking connection." "And have you found it?" She met his eyes over the rim of her cup. "I'm beginning to." The alien observers, now regular fixtures disguised as customers, documented each interaction. Chira noted how their conversations deepened with each passing day, how comfortable silences began to speak louder than words, how their chairs moved incrementally closer. 3 weeks into their evening meetings, during a rainfall that drummed against the shop windows, Amora made her decision. Trust had grown between them like a garden carefully tended, and she could no longer bear the weight of her secret. "Zarin," she said softly, setting down her tea. "I need to show you something. And I need you to know, if this frightens you, I'll understand. I'll leave and never burden you again." Concern flickered across his face. "Amora, what?" She closed her eyes, released the glamour she'd held for weeks, and let her true nature emerge. Fox ears materialized atop her head, soft and tipped with silver. Her tail unfurled behind her, fur catching the lamplight like spun moonbeams. Ethereal markings traced patterns along her arms, glowing faintly with ancient magic. When she opened her eyes, afraid to see rejection, she found Zarin staring at her with wonder instead of fear. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Amora, you're absolutely beautiful." Tears pricked her eyes. "You're not afraid." Zarin stood slowly, moving closer but stopping at a respectful distance. "How could I be afraid of you? You're the same person who cries at poetry, who laughs at my terrible jokes about book genres, who notices when I'm tired and makes me sit down." He smiled gently. "You're just more honestly yourself now." Something broke open in Amora's chest, the final wall around her heart crumbling. She stood, and suddenly the space between them felt like too much distance. "May I?" Zarin asked, hand extended. She nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. His fingers touched her ears gently, reverently, tracing the soft fur with wonder. Amora shivered at the contact, not from cold but from the intimacy of being touched as her true self. His hand moved to her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. "Thank you for trusting me," he murmured. "Thank you for seeing me," she replied. The kiss happened as naturally as breathing. Zarin's lips met hers softly, tentatively, a question and an answer all at once. Amora's hand found the back of his neck, pulling him closer, tasting chamomile on his tongue and feeling something that had been frozen inside her finally thaw. When they parted, foreheads resting together, Zarin whispered, "Stay. Don't leave." "I won't," Amora promised, her tail curling around them both. "Not anymore." Outside, hidden in the rain-soaked shadows, Vesson turned to his companions with something resembling emotion on his alien features. "This is what we've been searching for. Not destiny. Not magic. Just two lonely souls choosing each other." The rainfall continued its gentle song against the windows as Zarin and Amora held each other among the books. Finally, wonderfully home, the bond deepens. The weeks that followed felt like living inside a dream neither wanted to wake from. Amora began staying later each evening, until one night she simply didn't leave. Zarin's apartment above the bookshop became their shared sanctuary, a space filled with tea-stained notebooks, scattered books, and the mingled scent of jasmine and old paper. Their intimacy grew like the slow unfurling of petals at dawn. One evening, as rain traced patterns down the window panes, Zarin pulled Amora close on the worn sofa, her head finding its natural resting place against his chest. She listened to his heartbeat, steady and sure, a rhythm that grounded her to this world. "Tell me about Fox spirit bonds," he murmured, fingers gently stroking through her hair, carefully avoiding her sensitive ears in a way that made her smile at his thoughtfulness. Amora shifted, looking up at him with luminous eyes. "Among my kind, we bond only once. It's not magic that chooses, it's the heart. When a fox spirit finds someone whose soul resonates with theirs, whose presence feels like home." She traced idle patterns on his chest. "The bond becomes eternal, unbreakable. And if that person is human?" Zarin asked quietly, his hand stilling in her hair. "Then we choose." Her voice grew softer. "We choose whether to love from a distance, keeping our immortality and watching them age, or we choose to stay, to truly live in their world, letting our powers fade so we can share a mortal lifetime together." Zarin's breath caught. "Amora." She pressed her fingers gently against his lips. "I haven't chosen yet. But I wanted you to understand what this means. What you mean? He kissed her fingertips, then her palm, then pulled her up to kiss her lips properly, deep and slow, conveying everything words couldn't. Amora melted into him, her fox markings beginning to glow softly beneath her skin, responding to the depth of emotion flowing between them. Come with me, Zarin whispered against her mouth, standing and leading her by the hand to his bedroom. Moonlight spilled through the windows, painting everything in silver. Zarin turned to face Amora, cupping her face with both hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks with infinite tenderness. I need you to know, he said, voice rough with emotion, that I love you. Not despite what you are, but including every part of you. The human form and the fox spirit. The centuries you've lived and the loneliness you've carried. All of it. Amora's breath shuddered out. Zarin. And if you choose to stay, if you choose a mortal life with me, I will spend every single day making sure you never regret it. I will fill your remaining years with so much love that eternity would feel empty by comparison. Tears streamed down her face as she kissed him fiercely, desperately, pouring 200 years of loneliness and longing into the contact. They moved together toward the bed, each touch a promise, each whispered word a vow. Zarin's hands learned the landscape of her body, the places where her fox markings glowed brightest when he touched them, the way her ears flattened when pleasure overwhelmed her, how her tail wrapped around him instinctively. Amora discovered the taste of his skin, the sound of her name on his lips in moments of intimacy, the way his hands trembled when she looked at him with complete trust. They made love slowly, reverently, as if they had all the time in the world and simultaneously as if each moment was precious beyond measure. The fox markings on Amora's skin blazed like starlight, responding to the depth of their connection. Ancient magic recognized what was happening, a bond forming not through destiny's command but through conscious, beautiful choice. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Amora's head on Zarin's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns along her spine while her tail draped across his legs like a blanket. I can feel it, she whispered into the darkness. The bond settling into place. My soul recognizing yours. Zarin pressed a kiss to her hair. Is it supposed to feel like this? Like everything finally makes sense? Yes, she smiled against his skin. Exactly like that. From the street below, the three alien observers registered the energy signature of a completed fox spirit bond, the rarest form of connection in any galaxy they'd studied. But what struck them most wasn't the magic, it was the tender way Zarin pulled the blanket higher over Amora's shoulders when she shivered, the way she smiled in her sleep when he whispered that he loved her. Pure connection, Tom documented. Achieved through patience, kindness, and the simple choice to see each other truly. The moon crossed the sky as the lovers slept, wrapped in each other and the promise of tomorrows they would face together. Love's eternal promise. The morning Amora had to decide arrived with autumn rain and the scent of dying leaves. She stood at the window of their apartment, watching water stream down the glass, her reflection showing both her human disguise and the shimmer of her true nature beneath. Behind her, Zarin moved quietly in the small kitchen, preparing tea the way she loved it, jasmine with honey, steeped for exactly 3 minutes, served in the ceramic cup with tiny painted foxes that he'd bought for her last week. You don't have to decide today, he said gently, setting the cup in her hands. Take all the time you need. Amora turned to face him, memorizing every detail, the slight grey at his temples, the laugh lines around his eyes, the gentle strength in his expression. If she chose to stay, she would age with him, grow old with him, eventually die with him. She would surrender immortality, watching her powers fade like morning mist. If she returned to the spirit realm, she could visit him across the veil, love him from a distance, keep her magic intact. She would watch him age alone, watch him eventually love someone else who could truly share his mortal life, watch him die while she continued on for eternity. The choice was simple, really. It had been simple since the night he'd offered her tea by the fountain. I'm staying, she said, her voice clear and certain. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. Zarin's teacup rattled as he set it down, his hands shaking. Amora, you're giving up so much. I'm giving up loneliness, she interrupted, moving into his embrace. I'm giving up empty centuries of watching life from the outside. I'm trading immortality for something infinitely more precious, the chance to truly live. With you. He held her tightly, face buried in her hair, and she felt his tears on her neck. "I'll make it worth it. I swear to you, I'll make every day worth it." "You already have." They married 3 months later in a quiet ceremony at the bookshop, surrounded by shelves of stories and the 3 alien observers who had documented their journey from loneliness to love. Vesan, Chira, and Tam served as witnesses, revealing their true nature only briefly as a wedding gift, showing Amora and Zarin the beautiful energy of their bond from an alien perspective, shimmering threads of connection that would outlast even Amora's surrendered immortality. "What you've built," Vesan told them, "is rarer than magic, stronger than destiny. You've proven that the most powerful force in any universe is the choice to love, to stay, to be present." Years passed in gentle happiness. Amora's powers faded gradually, but she never mourned their loss. She found new magic in morning coffee with Zarin, in expanding the bookshop together, in quiet evenings reading side by side, in the silver that eventually threaded through both their hair. On their 20th anniversary, sitting in the same spot where they'd first kissed, Amora took Zarin's weathered hand in hers and smiled. "Do you regret it?" he asked, the question he'd asked every year, needing reassurance. "Never," she answered, the same response she'd given every time, meaning it more with each passing year. "You gave me something immortality never could, a life truly lived, a heart truly full, a home I chose rather than one I was bound to by nature." Zarin kissed her softly, tasting jasmine tea and honey and 2 decades of shared joy. "You filled my loneliness with love." "And you filled mine," she whispered back, with warmth that started with a simple cup of tea and grew into everything that matters. The bookshop lights glowed around them like captured stars as rain began to fall outside, the same gentle autumn rain that had witnessed their beginning. But now they faced it together, 2 souls who had found each other in loneliness and built something that transcended both magic and mortality, a love chosen freely, nurtured carefully, and cherished eternally. Lessons from a cup of tea. True love begins not with grand gestures, but with simple kindness offered freely to a stranger's pain. The strongest bonds are formed through choice, not destiny, through the daily decision to see, value, and cherish another soul. Home is not a place but a presence. It lives in the heart that finally feels safe enough to be completely, vulnerably seen. The greatest magic we possess is the courage to surrender loneliness for connection, to trade empty eternities for one lifetime lived fully in love's warm embrace. The end.